Homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all the benevolent lineage masters. The supreme Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered, even in millions of eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, may we all generate the supreme bodhicitta. We are now discussing the common preliminaries in The Words of My Perfect Teacher, which consists of 6 chapters including the benefits of liberation. Now we are covering chapter 3 on defects of samsara. We have finished the general introduction. Now let's proceed to the detailed explanation. We will contemplate the sufferings of the 6 realms one by one, the sufferings of hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, demigods, and gods, 6 in total. Firstly, we will discuss the sufferings of hell beings. In general, it is divided into 4 types: the 8 hot hells, the 8 cold hells, the ephemeral hells, and neighboring hells. First, let's discuss the 8 hot hells. The descriptions of hells in various sutras and shastras are not exactly the same. For example, in the 4th volume of the Yoga Karabhumi Sastra, it lists 8 hot hells, each of which is surrounded by 16 smaller hells. That makes 136 hells in total. This is just the characterization of the hot hells. The Durgagama also says each of the 8 hot hells is encircled by 16 smaller hells, namely the hell of black sand, the hell of wolf, the hell of pus and blood, and so forth. The Ekotaragama Sutra and the Great Treatise on the Perfection of Wisdom also mention 8 hot hells, but the names and the corresponding sufferings differ significantly. The descriptions of most hells are quite similar among texts of Tibetan Buddhism. But the records of journeys to hells by some sublime masters of Chinese Buddhism differ in terms of names and the corresponding sufferings. Regarding the difference, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche said, "Actually, hells are manifested by each being's mind. Because beings' minds vary in 1,000 different ways, descriptions of hells are in tens of thousands. It's not necessarily limited to 8 hot hells and cold hells. Therefore, we must know that different descriptions of hells in different scriptures correspond to the karmic consequences of different beings. Here we are providing a summarized overview. The original text on the 8 hot hells is as follows. The 8 hot hells described here, from the hell of revival down to the hell of unceasing torment, are stacked one upon another like the floors of a tall building. According to the Abhidharmakosha and the Yoga Charabhumi Shastra, these hells descend level by level from the revival hell, their floors and surroundings entirely formed of blazing iron. The moment one's foot touches down, there is not even the slightest hint of comfort. Unlike here on earth, where the ground does not burn even if the temperature is very high, there is no single comfortable place to stay in the hells. Everything is a searingly hot expanse of blazing, fiery flame. This is the overall condition of the hot hells. Regarding hells, I hope you will first acknowledge that the Buddha's Vajra words are free from deception. Otherwise, it may be difficult for you to believe the lifespans of hell beings and the degree of their sufferings. Ordinary people normally have doubts on things that we cannot directly see or experience. In such cases, we must rely on scriptural authority, believing that the Vajra words of the Buddha and the Sublime Masters are absolutely trustworthy. Even though our spiritual wisdom hasn't ripened enough for us to directly perceive hells, Or we cannot go to hell physically in person to experience the sufferings, or even if we experience the hells in previous lives, but we cannot recall them in this life. We should still have conviction that the corresponding teachings on hells are totally credible. It's crucial to have trust and confidence in these teachings. I've mentioned before, it's like a kindergartner being told about the conditions and sufferings in prison. At that time, it's difficult for the child to grasp this with their limited wisdom. They lack life experience and social understanding to fully comprehend such concepts. He won't be able to comprehend the fact that people who break the law may be sentenced to death or to life imprisonment. And the various filth and suffering in a life imprisonment prison is beyond comparison for him. A while ago, someone said he had broken the law and was imprisoned. When he entered the prison, he smelt the stink inside. More than 30 prisoners were put in one cell, and their excretions were left beside them for days. They were not fed in 3 or 4 days, so the situation was extremely unbearable. A few days later, they were taken outside and beaten up one by one. Although they were badly beaten, they still felt more comfortable because they could at least breathe the fresh air outside. The prison cell was extremely stuffy. There was a tiny crack in the door, extremely small. Many people crowded around this crack, struggling to get a glimpse of light. While looking out, like hell beings, the people inside, especially the strong young men, began fighting each other, desperately trying to claim that position. They fought fiercely inside. Such was the situation. And then earlier, there was someone in their 70s who spent a long time telling me about the torments and suffering in prison he experienced during the 1950s. I think if these stories were told to an elementary or kindergarten student, they'd seem like myth stories. Such things couldn't possibly exist. But once they grow up and break the law, ending up in prison, they finally understand. Oh, my teacher told me about this when I was in school. The experience matches exactly. Similarly, with our narrow ordinary minds, we need to rely on Buddhist scriptures and great masters' teachings to have a glimpse of the various sufferings of hell realms. Our minds simply cannot grasp it otherwise. When hearing how many years beings suffer in each hell realm, the numbers seem astronomical, beyond imagination. Yet such situations truly exist. Thus, through this contemplation of samsaric suffering, we should develop a genuine sense of fear towards hell. We will then vow to never commit negative actions no matter what, as it would be dreadful to end up in hell. Such a determination must arise through practice. Otherwise, many people nowadays pursue Dharma just for the sake of health, wealth, or promotions. There are so few people who study Dharma for the sake of avoiding rebirth in the hells. Many people, particularly some Buddhists, only pay lip service to the existence of hells. They dare not deny its existence, but do they truly fear hell in their hearts? Practitioners and eminent masters of the older generation were so afraid of falling into the hells that they would think about it day and night. As some of you senior Dharma fellows still remember, Phuntsok Rinpoche once said that sometimes when he thought about hell at night, he was so afraid of falling in hell that he couldn't even fall asleep. We can't sleep mostly because of some trivial affairs such as accommodation, but rarely because of the fear of falling into the lower realms. This means that although we speak about believing in the law of karma, we have not yet fully developed unwavering conviction. Therefore, we still need to put in sincere effort in this regard. Next, let's talk about the first one, the reviving hell. Here, upon a searing metal ground blanketed with burning embers, countless beings, numberless as snowflakes in a storm, are drawn together by the force of their own deeds. Since the deeds that brought them to this fate were fueled by hatred, their consequences mirror their cause. The hell wardens forcefully gather countless hell beings together, some beating, some killing. Whatever happens, what is the collective karmic result for these hell beings gathered here? All beings view each other as mortal enemies, generating intense hatred and fighting furiously. In this way, their shared karma manifests as mutual aggression and violence. In their hands, they hold inconceivable weapons manifested by karma, fighting to the death. When seeing these hell beings, due to karma from previous lives, they fight to the death in terrifying ways. If there's often hatred between dharma friends or other people in this life, then when you fall in hell and see them, it's as if they had killed your father. You become extremely angry. Hell beings don't need actual weapons. Unlike modern armies that need specific factories and trucks to transport weapons, it's not like that here. As mentioned in The Way of the Bodhisattva, just by simply thinking about it, they are able to have weapons appear in their hands, manifested by the power of their karma. Wielding unimaginable weapons, phantom arms conjured by their own karma, they attack one another until all lie dead. All hell beings fight and kill each other until all lie dead. If it ended there, that would be one thing. But actually, it's not so. A voice naturally echoes from the sky. May you be revived. Immediately, all the recently deceased beings come back to life. Then they resume their endless fighting, just as before. This cycle of death and revival perpetuates their suffering indefinitely. And thus they suffer, continually dying and being revived, again and again. This is the suffering of hell beings, especially in the reviving hell. It says in some sutras that hell beings go through 10,000 births and 10,000 deaths within a single day and night. In comparison, we humans are incredibly fortunate. If extreme suffering ends temporarily with death, many wish to commit suicide, thinking to end their final suffering once for all. But when hell beings' karma manifests, they are revived and their suffering resumes and repeats. It is because of their karmic force that beings in hell are revived immediately after their deaths and continue to experience unending suffering. What causes such results? Mostly it is because of negative actions such as breaking vows and killing. Also, according to the Sutra of Individual Liberation, a person may fall into the reviving hell if he doesn't properly confess his branch faults. How long is their lifespan there? 50 human years equal one day in the realm of the 4 great kings. 30 such days make 1 month, and 12 of these months constitute 1 year. 500 years in the realm of the 4 great kings equals 1 day in the hell of revival. By this calculation, 30 such days make 1 month, 12 months make 1 year, and beings in the hell of revival live for 500 such years. When calculated in human years, this span is truly vast. When we study Great Chariot commentary on finding comfort and ease in the nature of mind of the great perfection, the lifespan of each hell has been calculated using arithmetic. When it's convenient, you can refer to it. After each hell is introduced in the Great Chariot, it quotes the Sutra of Right Mindfulness for the lifespan within it. The lifespan in the reviving hell is in trillions, not tens of thousands of years. 100 or 200 human years, or even thousands or tens of thousands of years, is nothing by comparison. This is difficult for us to accept. Why is it like this? Could it be true? Yet we cannot disbelieve, as Chagme Rinpoche once said, disbelief is more serious than committing the 5 heinous crimes. The merit of virtuous actions and the faults of negative ones, the suffering of hell realms and their duration, if upon hearing these, you doubt this truth, the consequences are severe. If you consider this unreal, merely a saying, and develop wrong views, this negativity far exceeds the 5 heinous crimes. As Chagme Rinpoche says in Aspiration to be reborn in the pure realm of Sukhavati, when told of virtues good, the harms of evil, and sufferings and lifespans in the hells, to think that they're not true but are just tales, is graver karma than the heinous acts. Even confession brings no absolution. The meaning was explained earlier. Sometimes we develop such wrong views, wondering, could this be real? It seems impossible. If we consider the suffering and lifespans in the hells as falsehoods, we must sincerely confess this fault. Next, we'll discuss the Black Line Hell. Here, the henchmen of Yama lay their victims upon a searing metal ground like burning brands, marking their bodies with black lines. 4, 8, 16, 32, and more. These lines serve as guides for cutting them with blazing saws. As soon as their bodies are cut to pieces, they instantly become whole again, only to be repeatedly hacked apart and dismembered. This occurs through the power of their karma. Unlike human bodies, which once cut in half cannot become whole again. But sentient beings have unimaginable karmic forces. For example, after an earthworm is split in two, one half, the one with the brain, will typically grow into a full worm. Beings in the Black Line Hell have similar experiences due to their karma, and hence experience the suffering over and over again. In Chinese Buddhism, there is the Sutra of the 6 realms of samsara, which specifically describes the degree of suffering in each hell. What leads to the rebirth in the Black Line Hell? The sutra says that harming and deceiving parents, family, friends, and followers results in rebirth in the Black Line Hell. Therefore, we should reflect. Many people have created causes for the Black Rope Hell through numerous actions. If we don't repent now, indeed, after this human life ends, who can imagine what karmic results await us? Thus, whenever time allows, we should practice confession. Let's look at the duration of the Black Rope Hell. It is as follows. 100 human years equals 1 day in the heaven of the 33. The 6 desire realms follow in sequence. First the 4 great kings, now the heaven of the 33. 100 human years makes 1 day there, and 1,000 years in the heaven of the 33 equals 1 day in the Black Line Hell. The beings in the Black Line Hell live for 1,000 such years, which, calculated in human years, would be over 12 trillion years, as I recall. So in terms of human years, it's truly unimaginable. Within the entire Black Rope Hell, it takes an astronomically long time for beings to fully exhaust their karmas in this hell. If no one performs transference rituals for liberation or recites Buddha's name for them, and they must experience the full consequence of their past karma, it takes 1,000 years of their lifespan. Of course, if someone performs transference rituals for their liberation, they can be freed sooner. I read that is the case in Kandroma Lingsa Choki's Journey to Hells. When she went to hell herself to recite the mantra of Avalokiteshvara for hell beings, some hell beings experienced less suffering, some left the hells, and some were even directly reborn into the land of great bliss. She also noticed that if someone offered transference service to the deceased, for example, when children requested the Sangha to recite the mantra of Avalokiteshvara for their deceased parents, even if the deceased might still suffer in the hell, their karmic effect would become more tenuous right away, and they could attain a human form or even a rebirth in Pure Land. There are various circumstances about this in the journey to hells. Therefore, when our parents, family, and friends die, Whenever possible, we should give the names of the deceased to the Sangha and request a recitation service for them. Of course, how much you offer for the service is totally up to you. Someone tried to bargain with Sangha members at a monastery, saying, "I'm paying you 1,000 RMB, so can you recite the mantra 1,000,000 times? Perhaps you can give me a discount." Some even said, "So-and-so temple charges less for 100 million repetitions of the Mani mantra. I will send my money to them, as it's cheaper there." They treat practice like doing business. But cheaper doesn't necessarily equal better results. In fact, as long as you aspire to request a recitation service for the deceased, after receiving suggestions regarding which prayers or rituals to recite through divination or analysis, you may offer a certain amount of money to the Sangha as you wish, provided you are not stingy. This will do just fine. Or if it's possible, you may invite the Sangha to perform transference for all beings in the 6 realms, especially those in hells, aspiring their suffering to be alleviated soon. Having such an aspiration in mind will make your Dharma activity more effective and allow you to accumulate more merits. Compared to sufferings experienced by hell beings, those experienced by us humans are insignificant. Pansok Rinpoche often quoted an instruction from Mipham Rinpoche and told us, "If we cannot even bear the pain caused by a tiny spark that falls on our body, then how could you endure being placed on scorching metal and engulfed in the intense flames of hell? Sometimes we feel so miserable if we don't eat all day or when it is too hot. But compared to the hells, the human realm is like a heaven. A person just complained to me, 'I'm suffering so much. I am like living in hell. It would be better if I die and fall into hell sooner.' This may be due to his lack of belief in the law of karma. In fact, whatever pain experienced by humans is not even a tiny fraction of the mildest pain in the hell realm. As it says in Letter to a Friend, for one whole day on earth, 300 darts might strike you hard and cause you grievous pain, but that could not even match a tiny fraction of the mildest pain in hell. Sufferings in the 2 realms are simply not on the same scale. If you believe in cause and effect, you should know that samsara is full of suffering and there is not much true happiness in the human realm. But compared with hell beings, hungry ghosts, and animals, any feeling in the human realm is very happy by their standards. When I was reading in the afternoon, my body was in great pain. Later, I reminded myself that the pain of sickness I experienced was nothing compared to the suffering that hell beings endure. At this very moment, innumerable hell beings are experiencing excruciating suffering. Therefore, we should often dedicate our merit to all these beings, no matter whether we are in pain or joy. Next, we'll look at the 3rd hell, the rounding up and crushing hell. Countless hell beings are imprisoned in iron vessels vast as continents, while the hell guards swing iron hammers huge as Mount Meru to pound them. All beings weep and wail, dying in unimaginable agony, their very breath dissolving in a state of absolute terror. In the rounding up and crushing hell, there are 2 types of torment. In one, countless beings are packed into enormous vessels, where the guards of Yama swing massive iron hammers through the air and begin their brutal beating. After the beating, all beings die amid sounds of weeping. But when the guards raise their hammers again, the beings are instantly restored to their original state, only to experience the suffering anew. From morning until night, hell has nothing else, no time for breakfast or dinner, no work hours. Day and night, they experience suffering without pause. There is nothing I can do if you don't believe this. But if you do believe it, you should ask yourself, Do I want to be such a hell being in my future life? We must all examine our hearts. This is one type of torment. There is also another. In the valleys, all the opposing mountainsides transform into the heads of animals one had killed in the past. Deer, gazelles, mountain goats and such. Their horns blazing with fire, they clash horn against horn in combat. You may have seen how mountain goats fight. In his past, all the beings one had killed transformed into mountain-sized animal heads. As mentioned in the Yogacarabhumi Shastra, there were iron horse heads, elephants, lions, tigers, and many other animals. It described numerous mountains of animal heads. These mountains would crush together, or you could say these animals would fight each other. When these mountains clash, those who have harmed or killed beings are caught in between. Countless hell beings, drawn by their karma, gather between the two mountains. When the mountains collide, all these beings die, and the mountains become drenched in blood. When the mountains separate, the hell beings revive due to their karma manifesting. It's extremely terrifying. It says in the Sutra of the 6 realms of samsara that those butchers who killed pigs, sheep, rabbits and other animals will be reborn in this hell. Therefore we must be careful about our body, speech and mind, and refrain from misdeeds. There is a story in the Vinaya Sutra about a bhikshu who could remember his past lives. The bhikshu could remember that he had been suffering in hells for the past 500 lifetimes. Whenever he recalled the scenes from the past, he would be so terrified that all his pores bled, which dyed his monastic robes red. In response, the Buddha exempted him and other bhikshus like him from wearing single-colored robes. The bhikshu could then wear multicolored monastic robes. Meanwhile, he had to take a bath several times a day, because otherwise his body and clothes would be full of blood, preventing him from living normally. Later, this bhikshu practiced with great diligence and eventually attained arhathood. Had we also remembered the sufferings we experienced in hells, or directly seen the hells through clairvoyance, we wouldn't have idled every day. Even less likely would we deliberately commit misdeeds such as killing, while clearly knowing the consequences. We absolutely wouldn't dare. It is because we are so ignorant, not knowing rebirth, and not believing in the law of karma. If a person grows up in a Buddhist culture, such as a Tibetan or a Bhutanese, they will at least believe in the law of karma. In comparison, if a person grows up in an atheist or non-religious culture, they can easily generate wrong views toward the existence of hells, thinking it is just from a folk tale or a made-up story. Therefore, when you have such a wrong view, you may ask yourself, should I believe in my own fabricated thought? Hells do exist, which is taught by the Buddha, the ultimate truth-teller, and is validated by numerous eminent masters. Therefore, why bother relying on the views of an ordinary person like myself, who is engulfed by ignorance? What is there worth relying on? One should criticize and condemn oneself for having such a wrong view. As for the duration of this hell, 200 human years make one day in Yama heaven. Yama heaven is the heaven free from strife, for beyond the heaven of 33, there is no more conflict. Thus it's called the heaven free from strife. 2,000 years in Yama heaven equals one day in the rounding up and crushing hell. And the beings in that hell live for 2,000 years. If measured in human time, it would be about 103 trillion years, an unimaginable long time. Next, we'll discuss the fourth, the howling hell. Here, beings endure intense suffering, trapped within structures of red-hot metal, with no way to escape. Their bodies sink into a doorless iron chamber, filled with raging flames, where they endure excruciating torment. When they think of escape but realize liberation is impossible, understanding there is truly no way out, they cannot help but cry out in agony. As the scriptures say in the Sutra of the 6 realms of samsara, those engaging in negative actions, speech, and thoughts, particularly sowing discord to openly or secretly separate others, results in being reborn in this hell. It is in fact very easy to commit such misdeeds, so we really need to confess. Otherwise, when listing the causes of being reborn in hells, we may feel hopeless, because most of us have committed way too many misdeeds. Therefore, to avoid rebirth in hells, we must make great efforts to confess as much as possible before our deaths. The lifespan of this hell is as follows. 400 human years make one day in the heaven of joy. 4,000 years in that heaven equals just one day in the howling hell, where beings live for 4,000 of these hell years. It's a terrifyingly long time, and you should reflect on it. Next, let's look at the great howling hell. Legions of Yama's fearsome henchmen, armed and menacing, drive countless victims into metal chambers with double blazing walls. The metal sheds have double walls in this hell, which is a bit different from the buildings in the howling hell. Perhaps today's worldly prisons are similar. Those for serious criminals are locked in even more terrifying prisons. Then the hell beings are beaten with iron hammers. These beings think to themselves that both inner and outer doors are cast with molten iron. Even if they manage to escape through the inner door, they cannot escape the outer one. The prison is designed to prevent any possibility of escape, so they scream at the top of their lungs in extreme agony. This howling hell is mainly characterized by crying sounds. I remember that among a group of scientists doing geological research, there was a doctor from the Soviet Union named Azakov, who was a geologist. When he led the team exploring underground tunnels, they discovered that after digging 9 miles deep, their instruments suddenly became loose, as if they had broken through into an enormous cavern. At that moment, a very strange creature came flying towards them. When this being appeared, everyone present was struck with terror. From the hole they had drilled emerged countless voices crying out in unison, endless waves of human wailing. This recording was once available online. I heard it myself, lasting about 40 seconds. At that moment, Dr. Azakov immediately spoke up, declaring, "As someone who was previously an atheist Communist Party member, this experience has completely changed my understanding of reality. Since the Soviet Union was primarily atheist in ideology," he said, "I never believed in heaven, and even less in hell. I never believed any of it. But now, the evidence exists right before me. As a scientist with a rigorous attitude, I have no choice but to believe in hell's existence." He spoke of this before many people. Later, the Soviet Union seemed to make no official statement about this information. Many official governments maintained an indifferent attitude. They neither denied nor confirmed it. Of course, facts made it hard to deny. To confirm it might damage the atheist viewpoint in some ways. So at that time, they didn't do either. But later this news was spread mainly in America, Canada, and the BBC in England had also mentioned it. There should have been both audio and video recordings, but the video seems not to have shown. The audio indeed captured countless beings crying. Of course, skeptics might have various explanations, saying it's not really hell, just sounds from a dance hall. People have different theories, but when I heard it myself, I thought, the karmic manifestations of beings are truly inconceivable. I could only recite the Avalokiteshvara mantra while listening. There are indeed some individuals who have relevant experiences to prove the true existence of hell. For example, Srona visited hells often through his clairvoyance, and the daughter of Vallabha, while having no clairvoyance, saw scenes of hell while alive due to his karmic forces. People with special karma can indeed see or feel the hells. Here is a story in the Great Tang Dynasty record of the Western regions. A Brahmin was defeated by the monk called Bhadraruchi in a debate. He became furious, starting to slander Mahayana Buddhism and belittle past sublime masters. Before he had finished talking, the ground cracked open and he fell alive into the crevice. The very site is still there. There is a similar story in the Dharma history by Shechen Gyaltsab. There was a Geshe living near Lhasa, who due to his karmas of previous lives severely slandered the great perfection of Nyingmapa and also smashed statues of Padmasambhava. Later, this Geshe also fell into hell alive. Such phenomena indeed exist in our human world. Moreover, according to the treasury of Abhidharma, there are indeed hells under the ground of Jambudvipa, starting with the reviving hells and going downwards. When beings have committed extremely severe negative actions, they can fall straight into a hell. As recorded in the sutras, when some Indian Tirthikas with wrong views committed great misdeeds, the ground split open and they fell into the hells. Many such things have happened. Nowadays many people are suspicious about things written in the sutras. It is not until there is scientific evidence or a witness's testimony that they finally start to believe a little bit. In fact, evidence-based believing is not the only way, as it is not mentioned in the sutras that everyone can see the hells. Recently, a lay practitioner, who I think has attained spiritual realization, told me, "We can all feel the sufferings of humans and animals mentioned in Buddhist scriptures. Even though we cannot directly see the sufferings of hungry ghosts and hell beings, they must exist, because the Buddha said so. The Buddha described the sufferings in the human realm so accurately, and provided such detailed explanations of birth, old age, sickness, and death, that even today scientists and medical experts may not outperform the Buddha in the accuracy of the descriptions. An eminent master once said, "Science may not clearly distinguish valid and invalid cognition, nor may it truly study the subcategories of mental states such as greed, anger, and more." Indeed, the Buddha accurately described the sufferings of humans with great depth. Thus, his description of the sufferings of hell beings must also be accurate. Therefore, it is better for people to rid their doubts on the existence of hells and become aware of the horrors in the hell. Thus, they will then be motivated to confess and purify their past misdeeds and become real practitioners in the second half of their lives. I heard that many Dharma fellows had vowed to become real practitioners recently, and I think what they did is very necessary. After receiving a teaching, we should apply it to change our lives. Ordinary people must have committed misdeeds that can cause rebirth in hell. Then, what leads to the rebirth in the great howling hell? The Sutra of the 6 realms of samsara says, stealing goods belonging to the 3 jewels of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha can cause rebirth in this hell. We must be careful in handling the Sangha's provisions in daily life. For the realm of time, 800 human years make one day in the paradise of joyful magic. 8,000 years in that paradise equals 1 day in the great howling hell. Beings there live for 8,000 hell years. Now for the 6th realm, the heating hell. Here, beings endure unimaginable torment. They are cooked in massive iron cauldrons. These cauldrons are as vast as a billion-world universe. The beings boil endlessly in molten bronze. Countless beings in this hell suffer the torment of being boiled. When they float to the surface, they endure pain like pieces of meat being cooked. As they rise to the surface, innumerable hell guards hook them with iron hooks, causing extreme agony. The guards then strike their heads with iron hammers until they lose consciousness. At the moment of unconsciousness, they feel no suffering. When they regain consciousness, they mistake this brief respite for happiness. This is like in our world when someone falls unconscious during a fight. Upon waking, they feel intense pain. You see, but normally people consider unconsciousness the worst suffering. They say, "I was knocked out. How could you do this to me?" Or, "I was unconscious for so long." But actually, unconsciousness should be a relief from pain. These beings are always in dire straits, and their suffering is indescribable. Then, what causes rebirth in the heating hell? The Sutra of the 6 realms of samsara says, those who set fire to mountains, forests, houses, grasslands, and even living beings will be reborn in this hell. Regarding lifespans, 1,600 human years make 1 day in the heaven of gods who control others' emanations. 16,000 years in that heaven equals just 1 day in the heating hell. Beings there endure for 16,000 of these hell years. Next is the intense heating hell. Here, beings are imprisoned in houses of blazing metal. The guards of Yama pierce them with red-hot spears, impaling them from heel to anus. With tridents of red-hot iron, until the prongs push out through the being's shoulders and the crowns of their heads. At the same time, their bodies are enveloped in sheets of searing metal. What unimaginable agony they endure! How unbearable! This is the intense heating hell. As for their karmic results, it comes mainly from groundlessly slandering monastics and others deliberately, without any basis, due to dissatisfaction or various reasons, spreading false accusations. This karma leads to rebirth in the intense heating hell. The lifespan of beings there extends to half an intermediate kalpa. Those who have studied the Abhidharma know how long half an intermediate kalpa is. It cannot be measured in human years. The duration here is so vast that it cannot be measured in human years. The 8th is the ultimate torment hell, or Avici hell. Inside a blazing iron house surrounded by 16 neighboring hells, the guards of Yama throw countless beings into heaps, piling them up like mountains. In this ultimate torment hell, the ground everywhere is made of iron, and beings upon it burn like pieces of firewood. They stoke the flames with bellows made of tiger and leopard skin, until the victims' bodies and the fire are no longer distinguishable. It says here that countless beings are piled inside to burn by the manifestation of their karma, facilitated by bellows made of leopard and tiger skin. We've mentioned about bellows before. In ancient times, Tibetans used bellows to make a fire. I am not sure whether bellows are also mentioned in sutras or shastras. Here, Patrul Rinpoche describes the situation in this hell probably by comparing it with Tibetans making fires. As Gendon Chopal said, all phenomena in the hell are subject to the being's own karma. Before different beings, their individual karma can manifest. For instance, If someone is Han Chinese, then all the threatening and intimidating words from hell beings might be in Chinese. You can fully understand the communication. If a being is Tibetan or from another ethnicity, in their deluded vision, everything appears in their native language. If the hell being used to be an animal, then the communication will be in an animal style. It is the same with the appearances of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. As Gendun Chopal said, since Shakyamuni Buddha was born in India, the adornments of his Sambhogakaya form are the attires of an Indian king. If Shakyamuni Buddha had been born in China, he might have worn Chinese attire. If born in Tibet, he would have worn Tibetan dress. Therefore, what appears before beings, whether Yama's henchmen, as well as Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, all have different appearances in front of different beings, which is valid. Here, countless hell guards begin stoking fires, like massive modern steel factories with their abundant flames. Numberless hell beings are piled inside. They are piled up and burnt so hard that their bodies blur into the flames and become indistinguishable from the fire, completely becoming one with the flames, experiencing extremely intense suffering. Only their cries of anguish remain. No trace of their physical forms can be seen. What does it say in the letter to a friend? So too, of all the misery there is, the pain in torment unsurpassed is worst. Isn't it? You've memorized and recited it before. I haven't memorized it, but can still recite it, as I translated it from Tibetan. That's probably it, right? Isn't it? Did I say it wrong? Yes, it's correct. Is it impressive? Really? Yet the time of liberation remains endlessly distant in the hell of ultimate torment. It's as if there's no chance of liberation at all. At times, a small opening appears in the flames, giving them false hope of escape. But the guards strike them down with spears, clubs, hammers, and other brutal weapons, inflicting upon them the full torment of the 7 preceding hells, including the agony of molten bronze being poured into their mouths. They will experience all sufferings in the hell of ultimate torment, leaving no torments missed. Beings in this hell are hopeless. There are 2 explanations on the Chinese name of this hell, uninterrupted. First, it refers to the fact that the excruciating pain never ends, and the hell beings continuously experience it without interruption. Second, after death, these beings don't pass through the bardo, the intermediate state. They fall directly, without interruption, into the hell of ultimate torment. This happens to those who have committed the 5 heinous crimes. Without interruption can also refer to this immediate rebirth. There is no gap between death and their hell realm rebirth. The lifespan of beings in this hell lasts for an entire intermediate kalpa. It was half an intermediate kalpa earlier, and here it's 1 intermediate kalpa. This realm is known as the Hell of Ultimate Torment, for no suffering elsewhere can surpass it. It is the place of rebirth for those who have committed the 5 crimes of immediate retribution, as well as for mantrayana practitioners who develop wrong views toward their Vajra master. Those who have given empowerments, transmitted pith instructions, or transmitted lineages of Tantra are called the root guru of threefold kindness in Vajrayana. If one develops wrong views towards the root guru of threefold kindness, moreover, if one behaves disrespectfully towards him or her in acts, words or thoughts, even to slander the guru, and doesn't confess promptly and thoroughly, then this being will be reborn in the hell of ultimate torment. And those who killed parents, a teacher, or an acharya, in general, those who commit the 5 heinous crimes will also be reborn in the hell of ultimate torments. According to the Sutra of the 6 realms of samsara, those who killed parents, a teacher, or an acharya will be reborn in the hell of ultimate torments. Other Buddhist scriptures state that misdeeds such as breaking the root samayas, as well as holding grudges and initiating conflicts against Vajra brothers and sisters, if not purified, are grave crimes similar to the crimes with immediate retribution. It is very rare that a Buddhist kills a parent or an arhat in this life. However, it is possible for a Buddhist to break the root samaya by engaging in other severe negative actions. For example, someone who has taken the tantric path may receive empowerment and Vajrayana teachings from this guru today, and that guru some other day. Well, in some cases the problem comes from the guru, who is actually not qualified to give tantra transmissions and empowerments, but does so to achieve a personal goal through deception. But sometimes the problem comes from the disciple. For example, just because the qualified teacher didn't praise him in public, or he couldn't accept the teacher's behaviors due to his own deep-rooted wrong views, the disciple starts to slander the guru carelessly. Such a disciple not only develops wrong views himself, but also makes others generate wrong views about the teacher. As a result, unless he confesses sincerely, he will definitely fall into the hell of ultimate torment in the next life. Therefore, it is quite easy to commit wrongdoings. If an individual doesn't confess them properly, the hell of ultimate torment is not far from them. Recently we studied the chapter on the impermanence of life. We never know if we will die in 100 years, 50 years, or even tomorrow. We are living a happy life today in the realm of humans, but maybe tomorrow or next month, it is very likely that we will unceasingly experience infinite pains in the hell of ultimate torment. The law of cause and effect is infallible. So as practitioners, we must always remain mindful and vigilant of ourselves, trying our best to avoid misdeeds such as slandering and deceiving others, while engaging in wholesome actions as much as possible. Meanwhile, for the rest of this life we should recite the Vajrasattva mantra diligently, and confess all our misdeeds, whether we remember them or not, in the presence of Vajrasattva and other Buddhas or Bodhisattvas visualized. Otherwise we can easily fall into hells if the seeds of our negative karmas are not destroyed. Therefore, when meditating on the defects of samsara, we must have utter conviction about the corresponding teachings. With this conviction, we will establish a solid foundation through preliminary practices, making it more promising when we further proceed to the practice of tantric pith instructions. Otherwise, even if we may claim to have attained realization of the great perfection, in our real state of mind, we haven't even purified our negative karma stored in our alaya, the all-ground consciousness. Then when we close our eyes at the moment of death, we may directly fall into the hell realm without even having the time to apply the pith instructions of the great perfection for liberation. Isn't that self-deception? Therefore, each of us must be very cautious. Okay, let's end it here for today.